Let's talk about interval notation. So first of all, what is an interval? An interval is a piece of the real number line defined as all values between two endpoints. The interval may or may not include either of its endpoints, but it includes everything in between them. We usually label the endpoints A and B with A less than B. So we have the left endpoint A, the right endpoint B. An interval can be represented as a graph or an inequality or using interval notation. You'll often be asked to do 2 or 3 of those things. So let's look at some specific types of intervals and then the notation for each. You don't really need to know these names, but you need to know the notations. So an open interval doesn't include either endpoint. So its inequality is going to use less than. A is less than X is less than B. The interval notation will use parentheses. So parentheses A comma B parentheses. The interval notation here, so it's always going to have the left endpoint comma right endpoint. That order matters. You never give an interval in giving the larger value first. It's always left to right, least to greatest. Notice if you're familiar with ordered pairs, this looks very similar. It really looks identical if you just have two numbers. But this is giving like an initial X value and an ending X value. It's not giving an X value and a Y value. So it's kind of a one-dimensional start and finish rather than a two-dimensional notation. Context will be used to tell which is which. So you should always be able to tell. A closed interval includes both endpoints. So A is less than or equal to X is less than or equal to B, and this uses the square brackets. A half open or half closed has one of each. So A is less than X is less than or equal to B with the parentheses on the A and the square brackets on the B, or A is less than or equal to X is less than B with the square brackets on the A and the parentheses on the B. So those are all the possibilities of an actual interval, but we also can use interval notation for rays and lines. So a ray is when there's an endpoint and then an arrow in one direction. A line has an arrow in both directions. So what we do is we use infinity or negative infinity for the missing endpoints. So you can think of these arrows on each end of the number line being labeled as infinity and negative infinity. And so if you have the arrow, that's what you would use as that endpoint. So X greater than or equal to A starts at A with a square bracket. It has an arrow pointing to the right, so you would have an infinity. X greater than A, starting with a parentheses at the A, it goes forever, so infinity. X less than or equal to B, it has the arrow pointing to the left. So we actually start with the negative infinity, we go to B, and then we stop with the square brackets. Similarly for X is less than B with the parentheses instead of the square brackets. A line then is just going to be negative infinity to positive infinity in interval notation. There's not really an inequality for that. You just say all real numbers. In all of these, note the infinity always uses parentheses as well as negative infinity because we can't actually include infinity. Infinity isn't a number. It's just saying it goes on forever. So that's all pretty much all the possibilities for the different types of intervals. With set notation, intervals can't be given in set roster notation because each interval is made up of infinitely many individual real numbers. They can't be listed out in any kind of meaningful way that would indicate what all needs to be included. The inequality form can be put into the set builder notation. So you have the curly braces with the X and the vertical bar, and you'd fill in that blank with the inequality. You would never put an inequality into just curly braces that don't have the X and the vertical bar. And an interval notation with the parentheses and the square brackets never go inside braces of any form. So going from an inequality to interval, I'm going to practice that. So I recommend from the inequality, graph it, and then you could look at the graph and the interval is kind of right there. It's just slightly changing the form. So 1 is less than x is less than 3. So we have 1 and 3, and we're going between those and we're including, so it's going to be square brackets on each end. And so the interval is square brackets 1 comma 3 square brackets. So those, the interval and the graph match up very closely. X is greater than 5. I'm going to graph, and because it's the arrow pointing to the right, and wherever 5 is, it's going to start there with parentheses. So putting that into interval notation, I have parentheses 5, comma, and then I have the arrow. So I put the infinity, close the parentheses. All right, going from interval to inequality, you can go, writing the graph first may help with that as well, going to the graph in between. But pretty much you're just putting the square brackets, parentheses, those endpoints are the 1 and the 4. So going from the interval to the graph, but that's going to be then 1 is less than or equal to x is less than 4. For the negative infinity to -3 with the square brackets, the negative infinity, we have an arrow pointing to the right, and then we have square brackets at -3. And so this is going to be x is less than, because of the arrow pointing to the left. Sorry, I said right, I meant left. Arrow pointing to the left, x is less than, but then because it's square brackets, x is less than or equal to -3. Then -7, 0, that's, we have 0, and then wherever -7, somewhere over here, 0 is just as valid of an endpoint as any other real number. We have parentheses on each. And so, sorry, that was what we already had. -7 is less than x is less than 0 would be the inequality there. And then we have a couple examples starting with a graph and coming up with the interval notation and the inequality. The interval notation, we just look, so I have -1 with parentheses, comma, +1 with square bracket. The inequality, -1 is less than x because it's a parentheses, is less than or equal to 1 because of the square brackets. The next one, we have bracket at 2 and an arrow pointing to the right. So the interval notation starts with brackets, 2, comma, and then infinity for the arrow to the right, with parentheses. For the inequality, I can say x is greater than, because it's pointing to the right, or equal to, because of the square bracket, x is greater than or equal to 2. So that's using interval notation.